Scrabble is a word game in which 2 to 4 players score points by placing tiles, each bearing a single letter, onto a game board which is divided into a 15 × 15 grid of squares. The tiles must form words which, in crossword fashion, flow left to right in rows or downwards in columns. The words must be defined in a standard dictionary. Specified reference works provide a list of officially permissible words. The name Scrabble is a trademark of Hasbro, Inc. in the United States and Canada and has been sold by Hasbro's Parker Brothers division since 1999. Prior to 1999, it was sold as a Milton Bradley game. Outside the United States and Canada, Scrabble is a trademark of Mattel. The game is sold in 121 countries and is available in 29 languages. Approximately 150 million sets have been sold worldwide and roughly one-third of American homes have a Scrabble set. Game details. The game is played by 2 to 4 players on a square board with a 15 × 15 grid of cells, each of which accommodates a single letter tile. In official club and tournament games, play is between 2 players or, occasionally, between 2 teams, each of which collaborates on a single rack. The board is marked with premium squares, which multiply the number of points awarded. 8 dark red triple word squares, 17 pink double word squares, of which 1, the center square, is marked with a star or other symbol, 12 dark blue triple letter squares, and 24 light blue double letter squares. In 2008, Hasbro changed the colors of the premium squares to orange for TW, red for DW, blue for DL, and green for TL. Despite this, the original premium square color scheme is still the preferred scheme for Scrabble boards used in tournaments. In an English-language set, the game contains 100 tiles, 98 of which are marked with a letter and a point value ranging from 1 to 10. The number of points of each lettered tile is based on the letter's frequency in standard English writing. Commonly used letters such as vowels are worth 1 point, while less common letters score higher, with Q and Z each worth 10 points. The game also has 2 blank tiles that are unmarked and carry no point value. The blank tiles can be used as substitutes for any letter once laid on the board, however, the choice is fixed. Other language sets use different letter set distributions with different point values. Tiles are usually made of wood or plastic and are 19 by 19 mm square and 4 mm thick, making them slightly smaller than the squares on the board. Only the rosewood tiles of the deluxe edition varies the width up to 2 mm for different letters. Traveling versions of the game often have smaller tiles, sometimes they are magnetic to keep them in place. The capital letter is printed in black at the center of the tile face and the letter's point value printed in a smaller font at the bottom right corner. History. In 1938, American architect Alfred Mosher Butts created the game as a variation on an earlier word game he invented called Lexico. The two games had the same set of letter tiles, whose distributions and point values Butts worked out by performing a frequency analysis of letters from various sources, including the New York Times. The new game, which he called Crosswords, added the 15 × 15 game board and the crossword-style gameplay. He manufactured a few sets himself, but was not successful in selling the game to any major game manufacturers of the day. In 1948, James Brunote, a resident of Newtown, Connecticut, and one of the few owners of the original Crosswords game, bought the rights to manufacture the game in exchange for granting Butts a royalty on every unit sold. Though he left most of the game unchanged, Brunote slightly rearranged the premium squares of the board and simplified the rules. He also changed the name of the game to Scrabble, a real word which means to scratch frantically. In 1949, Brunote and his family made sets in a converted former schoolhouse in Dodging Town, a section of Newtown. They made 2,400 sets that year, but lost money. According to legend, Scrabble's big break came in 1952 when Jack Straus, president of Macy's, played the game on vacation. Upon returning from vacation, he was surprised to find that his store did not carry the game. He placed a large order, and within a year, everyone had to have one. In 1952, unable to meet demand himself, Bruno sold manufacturing rights to Long Island-based Selchow and Writer, one of the manufacturers who, like Parker Brothers and Milton Bradley Company, had previously rejected the game. In its second year as a Selchow and Writer built product, nearly 4 million sets were sold. Selchow and Writer bought the trademark to the game in 1972. J.W. Spears began selling the game in Australia and the UK on January 19, 1955. The company is now a subsidiary of Mattel. In 1986, Selchow and Writer was sold to Colco, which soon after went bankrupt. Hasbro purchased the company's assets, including Scrabble and Parcheesi. In 1984, Scrabble was turned into a daytime game show on NBC. Scrabble ran from July 1984 to March 1990, with a second run from January to June 1993. The show was hosted by Chuck Woolery. The show's tagline promotional broadcasts was, "Every man dies, not every man truly Scrabbles." In 2011, a new TV variation of Scrabble, called Scrabble Showdown, aired on the Hub Cable Channel, which is a joint venture of Discovery Communications, Inc., and Hasbro. Scrabble was inducted into the National Toy Hall of Fame in 2004. Evolution of the rules. The box rules, included in each copy of the USA, Canada edition, have been edited 4 times. In 1953, 1976, 1989, and 1999. The major changes in 1953 were as follows. It was made clear that words could be played through single letters already on the board. A player could play a word parallel and immediately adjacent to an existing word provided all crosswords formed were valid. The effect of 2-word premium squares were to be compounded multiplicatively. The previously unspecified penalty for having one's play successfully challenged was stated. Withdrawal of tiles and loss of turn. The major changes in 1976 were as follows. It was made clear that the blank tile beats an A when drawing to see who goes first. A player could now pass his/her turn, doing nothing. A loss of turn penalty was added for challenging an acceptable play. If final scores are tied, the player whose score was highest before adjusting for unplayed tiles is the winner. In tournament play, a tie is counted as half a win for both players. The editorial changes made in 1989 did not affect gameplay. The major changes in 1999 were as follows. It was made clear that a tile can be shifted or replaced until the play has been scored. A challenge applies to all the words made in the given play. Playing all 7 tiles is officially called a bingo. A change in the wording of the rules could be interpreted as meaning that a player may form more than one word on one row on a single turn. Notation system. In the notation system common in tournament play, columns are labeled with the letters A-O, and rows with the numbers 1 to 15. A play is usually identified in the format XY word score or word XY score, where X denotes the column or row on which the play's main word extends. Y denotes the second coordinate of the main word's first letter, and word is the main word. Although unnecessary, additional words formed by the player are occasionally listed after the main word and a slash. In the case where the play of a single tile forms words in each direction, one of the words is arbitrarily chosen to serve as the main word for purposes of notation. When a blank tile is employed in the main word, the letter it has been chosen to represent is indicated with a lowercase letter, or, in handwritten notation, with a square around the letter. Parentheses are sometimes also used to designate a blank, although this may create confusion with the second function of parentheses. namely indication of an existing letter or word that has been played through by the main word. Example: add it on D374. When annotating, the play would be written addition. The parentheses can be omitted, though, if each play states how many tiles were laid on the board in that play. As well, a number of symbols have been employed to indicate the validity of words. Asterisk means an illegal, or phony, word. Hash means a word valid in games using the British-originated word list only. Dollar means a word valid in games using the American-originated word list only. Means a word judged to be offensive, and thus valid in tournament games only. Sequence of play before the game. A resource, either a word list or a dictionary, is selected for the purpose of adjudicating any challenges during the game. The letter tiles are either put in an opaque bag or placed face down on a flat surface. Opaque cloth bags and customized tiles are staples of clubs and tournaments, where games are rarely played without both. Next, players decide the order in which they play. The normal approach is for players to each draw one tile. The player who picks the letter closest to the beginning of the alphabet goes first, with the blank tiles taking precedence over A's. In North American tournaments, the rules of the US-based North American Scrabble Players Association stipulate instead that players who have gone first in the fewest number of previous games in the tournament go first, and when that rule yields a tie, those who have gone second the most go first. If there is still a tie, tiles are drawn as in the standard rules. At the beginning of the game, and after each turn until the bag is empty, players draw tiles to fill their racks, or tile holders, with 7 tiles, from which they will make plays. Each rack is concealed from the other players. During a turn, a player will have 7 tiles on his or her rack. On each turn, the player has 3 options: pass, forfeiting the turn, and scoring nothing. Exchange one or more tiles for an equal number from the bag, scoring nothing, an option available only if at least 7 tiles remain in the bag. Play at least 1 tile on the board, adding the value of all words formed to the player's cumulative score. A proper play uses one or more of the player's tiles to form a contiguous string of letters that make a word on the board, reading either left to right or top to bottom. The main word must either use the letters of one or more previously played words or else have at least one of its tiles horizontally or vertically adjacent to an already played word. If any words other than the main word are formed by the play, they are scored as well, and are subject to the same criteria of acceptability. The first word played must cover H8, the center square. The word must consist of at least 2 letters, extending horizontally or vertically. H8 is a premium square. The first player to play a word receives a double word score. A blank tile may take the place of any letter. It then remains that letter for the rest of the game. It scores no points regardless of what letter it is designated or its placement on a premium square, but its placement on a double word or triple word square does cause the corresponding premium to be scored for the word in which it is used. After playing a word, the player announces the score for that play. Then, if the game is being played with a clock, starts his or her opponent's clock. The player can change his play anytime his or her clock is running, but commits to the play when he or she starts his or her opponent's clock. The player then draws tiles from the bag to replenish his or her rack to 7 tiles. If there are not enough tiles in the bag to do so, the player takes all the remaining tiles. After a player plays a word, his or her opponent may choose to challenge any or all the words formed by the play. The player challenged must then look up the words in question, and if any one of them is found to be unacceptable, the play is removed from the board. The player returns the newly played tiles to his or her rack and the turn is forfeited. In tournament play, a challenge may be to the entire play or any one or more words, and judges are used, so players are not entitled to know which word or words made a challenge succeed. Penalties for unsuccessfully challenging an acceptable play vary in club and tournament play, and are described in greater detail below. Under North American tournament rules, the game ends when either one player plays every tile on his or her rack, and there are no tiles remaining in the bag. At least 6 successive scoreless turns have occurred and either player decides to end the game, or either player uses more than 10 minutes of overtime. When the game ends, each player's score is reduced by the sum of his or her unplayed letters. In addition, if a player has used all of his or her letters, the sum of the other player's unplayed letters is added to that player's score. In tournament play, a player who goes out adds twice that sum, and his or her opponent is not penalized. Scoreless turns can occur when a player passes, when a player exchanges tiles, or when a player loses a challenge. The latter rule varies slightly in international tournaments.